So I'm doing my first response to a response of mine. Now, granted, it's been an extremely long time since anybody's responded to me, and that's largely because those people that used to respond to me a lot were often of two categories. They were either the feminist sort of side of people, and or quite possibly the religious sort of side. Granted, um, granted, with the feminists, I never actually made their response that made their response to me because largely I never had the time to do it. But I finally do have the time to actually start responding to critics of mine. And the other category of critics I used to have were the religious kind that wanted to bash all atheists as this or that. But granted, I'm actually a little bit thrilled to actually start responding to critics of mine, which we'll begin with gyno, cuck, the anti-MGTOW, and we'll just see what his criticisms of me are. Let's take a look.
Hello and welcome to my video responding to the forbidden thinker and the artificial womb. Now, I've seen many debates over the years about the herbivore men of Japan. Are they MGTOW? Are they not? I don't really know enough about them, so I'm just gonna say if they want to be MGTOW, I'm sure they can be, and if they don't need to.
It's actually a very interesting thought because you're actually the first MGTOW I noticed that when I bring up the topic of how people in Japan aren't as MGTOW as a lot of people claim it to be. You're actually the first MGTOW I've noticed that doesn't flip out and freak out when I tell them that misconception that Japan's a MGTOW continent or country isn't true. So I'm a bit more surprised that you're that type of person that doesn't exactly care, which that actually gives me good vibes about you because at least I'm talking to a reasonable human being instead of a couple other people that whenever I tell them that no herbivore men aren't MGTOW as they think they are, and with those people that think that way, they tend to be very, let's just say, cunty-like, especially when they start blocking you. But I digress. I don't want to spend too much time on the topic of whether or not the people in Japan can be MGTOWs or not. And I feel like this isn't the meat and potatoes of the criticisms, so I'm not going to delve too much about that topic. So let's begin.
Doesn't make much difference. Okay, so the artificial womb. Why is this such an attractive proposition? It's very simple.
Well, partly the reason why it's attractive opposition is largely based on the claim that MGTOWs want to basically replace all women with, and completely as like replacing the entire gender. That's largely why a lot of people are just criticizing that, not necessarily the idea of artificial wombs, but the MGTOWs sort of claim that MGTOWs should basically be in support of that. Now, granted, if you want my stance on artificial wombs, me personally, I don't think people will ever get rid of the whole gender, female gender, completely, even with artificial wombs. Now, I'm not against artificial wombs. I'm actually all for it if, like, for example, let's say you have a woman that's infertile that's not capable of birth. Well, then an artificial womb would work in that sense. However, the problem with the artificial wombs is something I noticed is that the only way you can get to work is, as far as I understand, through a plastic bag or tube, which is still unconventional and will lead to other side effects that a lot of people would get deterred from. That and the MGTOWs tend to cry a lot when I tell them that you still need an egg in order to even complete the process, basically.
Lots of men want to have children, but in Western countries, your children are not legally yours. They're legally the property of the woman. Therefore, an artificial womb would solve this issue because, apart from the egg, there's literally like no woman involved as such. So the birth defects is an interesting argument because there's currently birth defects, but the only difference is technology can transcend our human limitations. One of the main reasons we use technology is for that exact reason.
That's a very interesting response out of you because just because technology can surpass basically what you said doesn't clear out the birth defects. All that means is technology is outpacing our ability to do X, Y, and Z. However, I can foresee a future where we can sell out the birth defects on multiple cases, especially with the artificial womb. So, granted, I use the birth defects as a deterrent from the MGTOWs, thinking that it's a godly solution, but really it isn't. And we still haven't fixed the birth defects and how you still need an egg in order to even start and complete the process. And where on earth are you going to get the egg has always been my question with the MGTOWs, and most of them don't want to answer that question because, unfortunately, the egg comes from a woman.
No, it's not going to be an easy path. It's not going to be a quick process. So I don't.
True, it's definitely not going to be a quick and easy process, especially in the political atmosphere when eventually when that technology gets more available and more accessible, you're naturally going to find people that will see this as playing God, basically, and those people will want to try and restrict it and or limit it down, which namely it will come from a certain party or two that sees that'll see going into genetics and manipulating and even cloning as godly things that people shouldn't have the rights to basically mouth those things. It'll come from parties that think that medical science is woo-woo. It'll come from those parties that they'll try and basically limit that sort of technology. Now, granted, I will argue that eventually those people will eventually get debunked, and eventually that will get sorted out, and people will be able to lift those bans or restrictions over time. But I'm merely saying that the moment when the artificial wombs start coming online and they start working, it's not going to be an easy transition from an older generations that doesn't exactly understand it, and they want to basically ban or restrict it because they're terrified of the consequences of technology. We already seen this happen with Republicans and the sperm cell sort of stuff, where basically we had a potential promise of stem cells, I believe. I shouldn't say sperm, but stem cells is the correct word. And overall, the stem cells was an idea of how to basically progress in medical science, but as I said before, the Republicans were kind of fearful of that sort of level of scientific research, and they wanted to ban or restrict it. So I'd imagine the same thing would happen with the artificial womb at some point. So it'll be those people you will have to overcome, just saying.
I don't really consider birth defects a valid criticism at all because they may always exist. Who knows?
It still is valid criticism because, as I stated, a lot of MGTOWs see this as a golden option, and the baby will come out perfect. Which I would have to point out that yes, there will be birth defects; they're not going to be perfect at first. So when I made that sort of comment or statement, I'm merely saying that that since the infant will come out deformed, it's sort of a debunking of the MGTOW's sort of belief that it'll be a perfect newborn child when it's really not. Plus, we still also need the proper liquid fluids for replicating a human being in a bag, just saying.
Next criticism, you'll still need a woman for the egg. I'm going to link to an article where eggs have been or could be made from skin cells, which would actually technically mean we could become asexual, which is rather amusing. Now, artificial wombs.
I have to disagree with you there too, because when I looked at the article, the only way for that skin cell to work is ovary cells. Guess where that comes from? I'll give you a second or two. Well, alright, after a second or two, an ovary cell comes from a woman, so you still haven't defeated that sort of thing, unfortunately. Not only that, I also would have to give you some advice. When you linked that article, I noticed that there were a couple of ads running onto the site, and my advice is when you're doing research, try and use .edu or sites of that nature where they're not basically being paid by ad revenues, because any study source that comes from an ad revenue is not only going to be biased to some degree, but it will alter or change, or I wouldn't say alter or change, but just the data within that scientific research will be opinionated to a degree. So it's better to find a research article that doesn't have as many ads on it, because if a scientific research came out and said, oh, this is how ads cause cancer, you would imagine they'd lose a lot of funding, and they wouldn't be able to keep their websites up. So any websites or any research website that doesn't have ads is far more trustworthy in my eyes. I'm just saying as a tip for you for future videos, if you ever do find any other articles online. Just saying. And also make sure to link up the actual person that wrote the article and the research sort of person, because those usually help when it comes to citing your sources. If you also link the person that actually tried to do the scientific research and the article writers, that way you can verify whether or not those people are actually real scientists versus versus the, let's just say, the crazy medical scientists that think that Asperger's is a disease and such.
Are the solution, however, are single men going to be able to use them? That would be number one criticism. Well, and then number two, how much is it going to cost and when will it happen? I can't imagine it being cheap, not at all. And I'm not going to make a prediction on how long it'll take, but it's not going to be in the next 5 years, that's for sure. However, the classic saying, can't a man dream? Gonna ruin his dreams, you're a terrible person. Joking aside, I don't think anyone's really saving up, like they've got a stash of cash called my artificial womb baby, can't wait, let's call him Bobby. They're not saving for Bobby quite yet. Calling out other MGTOW and cleaning house. That was your next point. MGTOW don't do this, or don't do it very often. And the crazies are getting more popular. Just to troll you. Citation needed. I made a video.
Okay. Well, here's the citation that you needed.
And to be fully honest with everyone, the Men Going Their Own Way community is not for gay men to join. So if anyone was to ask me this question whether I should encourage gay men to join MGTOW, that is going to be definitely a negative. Because here in MGTOW, and I am speaking on behalf of the monks of MGTOW, we don't encourage men to become gay or homosexuals. But what we do as Men Going Their Own Way community members is we encourage men to hone their masculinity and to maintain their masculinity. Also, in my own opinion, for a man to become a homosexual, it is a form of male emasculation. And there are some gay men out there who also support feminism, which, for a man to become gay in general, supports the feminist movement. Which is why I say the monks of MGTOW are not going to go for this. If anything, they're going to be against this. Because we're about being straight males, which we are straight males. But we just choose to walk away from the plantation. And we choose not to date women anymore.
Also, yeah, it's actually true. The crazies are actually growing in numbers and also in popularity as well. Like, there's very few MGTOWs out there that are willing to criticize Red Pill Ghost when he made that comment about how gays shouldn't be in the MGTOW community. And And the level of criticisms coming from MGTOWs when they're trying to criticize, say, Traversable trying to shame men into being MGTOW. I mean, a lot of all those criticisms aren't being done, unfortunately, which leads me to believe that they don't do cleaning house, basically. They don't do a very good job at it, and they just don't do it. And granted, if you can show me a MGTOW criticizing, say, Red Pill Ghost, for example, then you may have good points that from time to time they do, but from my perspective and my experience, yeah, a lot of them, unfortunately, just don't call out each other, unless if it's people that do something extremely questionable, like angry MGTOW doxing, and also trying to get CPS to remove Jeff Holiday's child. Now, if you can show me a MGTOWs criticizing not angry MGTOW, but just Red Pill Ghosts and those, and Traversable and a few other of those crazies, then you may have a good point. Oh, by the way, I have to show this clip. I love showing that clip. I always found it funny.
Specifically about this topic, I want everyone to express themselves as honestly and as fully as possible, regardless of if I like or don't like what they have to say. No speech should be silenced, no speech should be censored. If it's some crazy stuff like, I don't know, kill all that group, or promotes criminality, I'd start arguing against that. And let's say someone's making up or chatting a load of shit, it should be easy to mock them and post or provide the counterpoint. If I say the Earth's flat today, you'd be like, well, here's a picture of the Earth. What, you retarded? If you're right, prove you're right. If it's on a subjective matters still have some sort of reasons behind them. Now, some individuals did some shitty stuff, supposedly, but I've never really been very interested in drama. And the larger point,
I think you should be interested in drama. And the reason being is because it helps build character. It really defines you as a good or bad person, and or possibly a very smart intellect versus not someone that isn't so smart. And that's really the reason why I really am invested into dramas of many kinds. And also it helps me build a better moral consensus of what to do and what not to do. Like, for example, in fact, I'm going to bring up two examples. The AIU drama. Like, ever since when AIU decided to dox people, his moral prerogative was, oh, they're criticizing me, therefore I need to basically reveal them and take off their masks, because I need to know what the accusers are, and that was his moral prerogative that he was trying to push. And a lot of people, especially me and others, have gone out and said that sort of action is unethical because you can't force people to dox. And the lesson learned from this whole drama is that basically doxing your critics like that is unethical. Especially when you can put lives in danger when they are doxed, especially if there's certain sensitive information. Like, hypothetically speaking, let's say someone got angry at person B, and that person B is an ex-Muslim for a reason, and person A decides to dox person B. Well, that person is potentially in danger if he lives in a certain Islamic country. And overall, the message coming out from that is don't dox, it's unethical and blatantly just wrong. And people that took part in that drama that were against the doxing sort of stuff got a better understanding of what doxing is and came out morally better, because we all know that doxing is bad, and we've already explored what are the consequences of potentially doxing people and all that. So coming out from that drama will teach you a lesson or two about how unethical doxing is. Another said drama could be, let's say, like, like the Daddy 05 sort of recent thing. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't want to hear about it, but I do, and this is the only time I feel like I can properly say my opinions about that. That the Daddy 05 drama is extremely horrendous, that what the father did. Granted, his moral prerogative was to do it under the name of entertainment, or that somehow or that the child somehow wanted to do that because it was their channel. And that was his prerogative, or moral prerogative, and the lesson to learn is, obviously, quite simply put, being your child is just unethical, it's monstrous, and very much just disgusting. And that all we can agree on, that being children is unethical, quite simply put. And those that took part of that drama and actually tried to fix the problem and provide a solution of how to end that also came out with a better moral sense of what's right and wrong. And also good news, by the way, I believe the son and daughter of the original parents are away from that horrendous family, so there's some good news in that story, which I hope a lot of people will like. I was certainly happy when Daddy 05 lost Cussy, or I wouldn't say Cussy, but they just don't have the children anymore, which is thankfully, which I'm glad that he won't be able to harm those children again. But it goes back to my point. After looking into these dramas and being invested into them, you come out as a better person when you explore these ideas, these dramas, and you come out potentially better or worse. And that's why I'm always invested in the drama. It's just my way of figuring out, okay, is this right and wrong? And thankfully, of all the experiences of all the dramas I've encountered, I've come out to be a much better person. And let's continue.
Say if MGTOW never said a bad word about anyone, ever, it'd be exactly the same case like the MRA and the media. Whenever a man kills a woman, they'll go, oh, it's an MRA. MRA, definitely MRA. And then when MGTOW gets more popular, maybe they might stop bashing the MRA and be like, yep, definitely MGTOW. All serial killers, MGTOW, 100%. Now, am I stretching? Do you think I'm being realistic? MGTOW may never get mainstream, but who cares?
You're sort of being realistic, especially in the media sort of stuff. Now, granted, that may happen in the media sort of spectrum, especially if MGTOWs become more popular, and naturally so, people will naturally point the finger against MGTOW, and that is a realistic thing. However, I don't buy into the idea that will ever happen, because it kind of goes back to the old generation being stubborn that I mentioned previously, that sometimes they won't budge and they'll assume that those MGTOWs are MRAs. So you're always going to get those people to basically assume that they are MRAs because of their old stubborn ways. But say,
who needs external validation? I don't need society saying like, oh, you're really awesome, or you suck. What society does is like, oh, are you playing by our rules? You doing what we said? We're like, no. And they're like, oh, they must be evil. It's like, what's that? You're thinking for yourself. You're not just swallowing all our bullshit. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. So, the Forbidden Thinker, keep putting out content. Thank you for listening, watching, and goodbye.
and don't worry, I'll keep making videos. But here's my request. I want you to become the demotivator person of the MGTOW community that's willing to talk to me. The reason being is because, now granted, I don't like the demotivator opinion guy. He's basically the feminist sort of person that's supposedly moderate and is willing to talk to the other side, but my request is that you become sort of the same thing. Granted, not a feminist, but a person that's willing to talk to people that are against the radical, say, the very radical side of the MGTOWs, like me. And I've been needing to find a person that is willing to disagree with me and basically express their criticisms of me, and then possibly do a debate or two and keep it like that. That way, I'd be able to sharpen my arguments better. Now, you may find this strange, but yeah, that's what I see out of you. You are potentially a MGTOW that could be just as the same standard as the Mover opinion. Granted, not a feminist, obviously, but just someone that's willing to talk, and it's a win-win situation, basically, where you get to learn a couple new things, and so do I. So, I hope you can understand that, I hope you can understand my request, and I wait forward to your answer. And see you all later in the next video. In the next video, I'm going to be responding to a very creepy orange cultist man. So, can't wait for that.